Hey everyone, it's Braulio Rosa with the Broward Bar Buzz, and I'm here with Lance Randall of Keller Williams Realty.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, recently I thought I saw that you had won some kind of award in the real estate realm. Tell us about it.
I did. I was presented with the top solo agent in the Market Center award for closing the most transactions out of any other agent in our Market Center. I also frequently fall within the top 10 of all Keller Williams agents in the region. And I also was presented recently with the Double Gold Award as one of Keller Williams' top performers in the entire country.
So our connection is initially through LRI process service, and you know that market very well, the lawyer world. But now you provide another service that our members could benefit from. Tell us a little bit about what's the market like for lawyers now in terms of real estate and locating their firms?
Well, there's an array of services that we provide to lawyers. But on that particular topic, it really is going to depend on the size of the firm, right? Look, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out that if you're paying rent, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. And at the end of the day, the only thing you have to show for it is that day's accommodating space, right? No equity, no return on your investment. You just rented the room for a day, week, month, year, right? So anytime you have an opportunity to buy, you definitely want to buy. Because at the end of the day, when it's time to sell the firm or it's time to retire, you have another investment, you just have another avenue of funds to help you move on to that next chapter of your life.
So at what size of a firm, it's probably revenues, should they be looking for potentially buying a building? It doesn't have to be a big building, although it could be. I very close friends with some local lawyers, obviously, and I know a couple of years ago they purchased a building not far here from the bar center, and it was a great investment for them. And they've grown. They started off with, I think, like 4 lawyers or 5, and now I think they're up to like 10 lawyers and all their staff. So
we have a lot of Broward County Bar members that, believe it or not, have bought various size properties, and it has turned out to be very fruitful for them. Not just in their growth, but also in their end game. And I won't mention any names directly because I don't want to spread their business. But a very good friend of yours and mine, as an example, has a property in Hollywood surrounded by a bunch of tall buildings. That property is basically liquid gold right now.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that person's a solo small practitioner, and he basically, I'm guessing that was once a house back in the day.
Might have been.
And now it's a law firm. It's
Yeah.
probably like a 2,000 square foot, 1-story building, something to that effect. And I've seen solo smalls,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 lawyers and their staff buy places like that.
Well, and the goal is to grow, right? I mean, a solo practitioner doesn't want to be a solo practitioner forever. Yeah. They want to hire associates. They want to be out there, marketing and bringing in the business while the associates are practicing and litigating.
Correct.
And then, like everything else, the greatest thing about commercial property is if you can find the right lender, which I have, so you can reach out to me and we'll connect you. But the greatest thing about commercial property is you can finance that 100% without a down payment. You will need closing costs. And what my lender is telling me, because look, we're no different. My process serving agency, my real estate company, we're all looking for the same thing. And what I was just recently told is that if I found a commercial property, I can rent up to 50% of that space and use that income towards my debt to income qualifying ratio.
Wow.
Good info, right?
Very good info.
Yes. So it doesn't really matter the size. It matters the level of risk you're willing to take versus what you can afford to carry if things go wrong.
Right. So you would have to basically show, I mean, this is the dumbing it down version, but you'd have to show what your firm, how much money traditionally you've generated annually versus potentially, let's say you have 2 offices that you're going to rent and that's 50% of the building. You could show that income also in addition to what you earn towards qualifying for the property.
To my understanding, that's correct. Okay. And it's really no different than residential real estate. I mean, it is obviously one's commercial and one's residential. One you have to be the primary resident in. One you have to be the primary business tenant, if you will, right? But the theory is the same. For example, like a lot of our customers right now are wondering, what should I be telling my kids? I mean, this market's tough right now. A lot of people can't afford to sell because they're making lateral moves, right? I mean, if the home that you're selling is worth $600,000 and the home that you want to buy to upgrade, like another bedroom, for example, or one more bedroom and one more bathroom, takes you to an $800,000 or $1 million house, depending on the location.
Big jump.
It's a huge jump, right? And you're almost doubling your mortgage payment by the time you're done with your taxes and your insurance. So most of us parents, if we will, we're not in a position to where we can do an upgrade and give our children the house because we need to sell that in order to be able to afford to move up, right? You're not, unless you have loads of money in the bank and you're making money hand over fist and banking it and not living life at all, the odds of you waking up today and buying a $1.5 million 5-bedroom 4.5 bath home are slim to none, right? You're in that $600,000 range when it's your starting off. So you have to get into the market in some fashion. So what I'm telling my own children, as well as your children and our customers' children, is there's fantastic programs out there. For example, did you know that you could buy, any of us could buy a duplex or a quadplex. Let's use a quadplex because that's my favorite, because that's really where you're going to find a big ROI. FHA has a program where you could buy a quadplex as long as you are going to live in one of the units. They will allow you to use 75% of the income from the other 3 units towards your debt to income ratio to help you qualify for that loan.
Wow. What is the sweet spot for, let's use that example. What would be the sweet spot for a potential investor? One of our members, they own their house and now they're looking to invest or increase their portfolio. They're thinking about purchasing some kind of investment property, say a rental that'll create positive cash flow. On those rental properties, what's the sweet spot that the money that you're going to recover from rental is going to cover your mortgage?
The rule of thumb is you should never buy a property for a purchase price that you cannot generate 1% of the income from. So if you find a rental property that's $500,000, you need to be able to rent it for $5,000 a month to break even. Or you won't profit immediately over the year or so. Next year, you'll make a little bit more. Every year you make a little bit more because your expenses go down and rents will eventually increase. Okay. Property taxes will always increase. Homeowners insurance will always increase, but your mortgage payment, and this goes to anything, commercial, residential, or investment, right? The whole reason that you buy is to lock in the payment, right? Yeah. Every year your landlord wants to raise your rent. Your principal mortgage payment will not go up. It's the escrow that goes up. It's your insurance. It's your property taxes. If you get it at a fixed interest rate, your interest rate's not going up either.
What's the average going rate now to rent a 2-2 apartment?
Depending on the location, probably around $2,000 a month for a decent, upgraded 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in your average income area.
So if you had this quadruplex, you're looking at potentially, in your example, $6,000 in revenue monthly.
Correct. Plus you're living in one of the units.
You have to live in one.
Well, if you do that FHA program.
Right.
If you buy conventional, you don't have to live in it at all.
Right.
You're going to pay a higher interest rate because now it's considered an investment loan and not a primary residential loan.
Right.
So your interest rate's a little bit higher. But right now, as crazy as interest rates are, they're right about the same. Interest rates are hovering. They went up last week. In fact, there was the TV stations were reporting last night and the night before that interest rates had spiked. The media makes me angry because the media is about a week and a half behind. Interest rates spiked between the 1st and the 14th. And now they've come back down. And when I say come back down, they've spiked to like 7.5, 7 3/4. And now we're back to 6 3/4 at 7. So it's not as drastic as people think.
What's the tax if, let's say you invest into a property like this, but you decide to go conventional? Now you don't have your homeowners.
You don't have your homestead exemption.
Homestead
Right.
exemption. What's the tax rate on that? Do you know?
So when you purchase your property, no matter what it is, commercial, residential, when you purchase the property for the remainder of that year, because taxes are reassessed in November. So for the remainder of that year, your taxes are going to be based on what the previous owner was paying.
Okay.
But when the county reassesses, the rule of thumb is you can bank on approximately 2% of your purchase price.
2%.
And then if it's your primary residence, then you can claim a homestead exemption. In January, you will apply for your homestead exemption, and you get somewhere around, what it does is it takes about $50,000, just a straight homestead exemption, 25 and 25. So $50,000 off of your assessed value.
Okay.
So if you paid $400 for it, you claim your homestead, it's going to be somewhere around $350 that it's assessed at, give or take.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then if you're a veteran, you get an additional discount. If you're a widow, you get an additional discount. So there's different things.
Let's talk about veterans. So there's VA loans. I'm a vet. I've never actually used it. I don't think I could have a primary residence, but explain how you use a VHA loan.
Vets with VA loans are my favorite customers because we get to work. You need a good realtor. You need to know somebody who's really good at negotiating. But a VA loan, those of us who knows how to work VA loans, we call them VA no-nos. No money down, no closing costs. There's a VA funding fee, but the seller has to agree. VA has rules, and you have to. There's things that the seller has to pay for. So VA, if you're a vet, you're golden because you have the ability to do things that most of the non-ex-military or non-veterans, can do.
So why would someone agree to pay extra fees? It sounds like the seller has to pay fees that otherwise he wouldn't have to pay.
Well, because it's minor in the grand scheme of things. Okay. And in most scenarios, the seller is going to contribute something.
Right. There's always a give and take.
There's always a give and take, right? You want your price, we'll give you your price, but we need this.
Right.
A lot of realtors, again, those of us who know what we're doing, it's not about the price. Terms are equally as important as the price.
Right.
Would you not agree?
Yes, because in the end, it's what's your monthly payment.
Agreed. What did it take you to get into the property? How much out of pocket it's going to take to get in? What is going to be your monthly payment? Is the seller happy with what you're offering? Are you happy with what you're offering? It's got to be win-win or no deal. If both parties are not winning, a fair deal. I didn't pay you as much as you wanted to get paid, but I paid more than I wanted to pay. That's a fair deal.
Some of the mediators would say no one's happy.
That's it. But really everybody's happy. You know, when you put
Yeah.
keys in someone's hand and you watch their face light up, it's breathtaking. It really is.
For a VA loan, can it be used for buying properties as an investment?
You can use a VA loan, for example, to buy a quadplex or to buy a duplex. The trick with the VA loan is you have to live in it.
Okay.
You have to live in it for at least a year. And the other thing about a VA loan is you may have, $650,000 qualifications on a VA loan. Well, if you buy a property at $300,000, you still have $350 left. It's not one and done.
But you couldn't it sounds like you have more, you could purchase another property under?
After you lived in that one property for at least
a
1 year,
Wow, okay.
right? Then you can convert it into a rental.
And then move on to the next.
Turn around and do the same.
Not a bad strategy.
Not a bad way to go.
What are some creative ways that, assuming someone's not a veteran, how could they be creative if they wanted to increase that portfolio? Someone that just paid off their house and now they have some little extra income, but not crazy amount of income, and they want to expand their real estate portfolio.
Well, we could negotiate seller financing. That's where the seller of the property takes back the loan, as opposed to you going in traditional methods. Seller could agree to pay the closing costs. Seller can contribute towards your down payment. All right. You can do a lease option to purchase, where you're renting to own.
That's good. Any other thoughts on creative ways of getting into properties?
Don't wait. Don't wait to buy real estate. Buy real estate and wait. A lot of people are very fidgety right now about the interest rates. I mean, hell, in the 80s, interest was 17, 18%. In the 90s, interest was 8, 9, 10%. If you waited, somebody in the 90s, if they waited, or even the 80s, if you waited for interest rates to drop below 5%,
You'd be 50 years old.
you'd be 33 to 35 years before those rates dropped.
Yeah.
Your house would be paid for at that point, right? I'm not a fan of the saying, don't, marry the house, don't marry the rate. I'm not really a fan of that, because you got to make sure that you can afford it.
Right.
But if you look at the trends, every 10 years, we go through a peak and a valley, right? In the 80s, we had the foreclosure. We had the adjustable rate mortgages, that market crashed, and we had a bunch of foreclosures, right? 2007 to 2012, we had the balloon, right, where the banks almost went out of business because they were giving everybody and their mother a loan without verifying their actual income. We had a bust. COVID brought interest rates that were unfound. It was basically free. If you caught it at the right time, I know people who bought during COVID. Yeah, they paid $100,000 more out of their pocket than that property appraised for, but their interest rate's 1%. It was free to borrow money.
Not bad.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a bad deal.
Right.
And the market's correcting right now, so you want to be careful, right? You want to make sure that you can afford it. Don't, like anything else, don't live beyond your means, right?
If someone wants to get a hold of you and use your expertise to potentially expand that portfolio, how do they get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is call me directly on my cell, 954-214-8263, or text me. And then my website is iwantthisplace.com.
Lance, thank you for coming and educating us.
Thank you for having me.